very much, everyone, and welcome. Good morning. Nice to see so many people that have joined. Today, I have the pleasure to talk to you about AI as a curatorial assistant. Um, I'm working at IN2 Digital Innovations together with Preslav, and we'll try to provide you with a couple of, let's say, demos as an inspiration for what could be achieved with AI in this context. And I will provide maybe first the agenda for today. I think that's quite interesting to review at this point. So we're now having this welcome. Then I will provide you with an introduction to the Cultural Heritage Cloud and the UNICHE project. For those that joined us during the previous webinars, I'm sorry that we are maybe repeating something that you already saw, but there are also people that are joining us new. So we want to provide this, this context and background to them as well. Then we are going to quickly review the objective and the guidelines of today, and we're going to have, let's say, a bit of an overview, very short one, because the topic is, of course, huge, about AI, what it is, and how to make the most out of it within this context. And then we're going to go into the, let's say, main part of our webinar today, which is a couple of very interesting demos about the use of AI and how they could help this aspect of searching and how to recommend items. And finally, then we will close with some closing remarks and we'll open the floor for question and answers. So your questions, please do write them down if you have some coming up during the entire event, and then you can ask them at the very end. We're very, very curious actually about them. So let's get started. A bit of an introduction context to UNICHE. UNICHE is a project which is funded as part of the Cultural Heritage Cloud ecosystem. This is a platform designed to provide especially heritage professionals and researchers with better access to data, to scientific resources, capacity building, and most importantly, also really a series of open digital tools that are tailored to their needs. And within the UNICHE project, we are looking at one such, let's say, specific toolbox, which is focusing on how to create more, let's say, engaging, meaningful cultural heritage experiences, especially in museums, and how to do this to enable basically professionals from cultural heritage institutions to do this without knowing how to code, without knowing how to, let's say, program complex tools themselves. So we want to have something which is working as a kind of a no-code platform that is collaborative and can really provide this type of authoring functionality for creating these new types of experiences to engage audiences. I also mentioned a bit already about the UNICHE project and the objectives, but just to, let's say, sum it up here, it's really about looking at how to have a plan.
Alexandru, can you hear us?
I cannot hear.
Yes, I think we lost Alexandru for a little bit. Preslav,
Yeah, okay.
I'll give it a second. Let me admit him again. Possibly there was something wrong.
Hello again.
Hello again.
And apologies, I don't know what happened here. Let me also put the microphone properly. Now I hope you can hear me.
We can hear you, yes.
Perfect. And I will share again. I'm terribly sorry. Germany is known for many things, but unfortunately, punctual trains and good internet connections are necessarily one of the things that we are very proud of, at least at the moment. Hopefully, this will improve. So apologies for this interruption. I see someone coming in. All right. I guess you lost me somewhere where I was trying to summarize the main objectives of the UNICHE project. I will just mention again that this is something that is integrated within the Cultural Heritage Cloud, and it is meant to be a really collaborative, AI-assisted, and no-code tool for non-technical experts in order to author cultural heritage experiences. We are going to do this by examining the main 4 E's: exhibits, experience design, exhibitions, and evaluation, where we basically want to have different tools that are able to address each one of these aspects. For instance, here you will see that in today's call, we're going to focus on this part of the AI, which is a bit more in the center. Let's say the heart, the beating heart that is enabling then a set of applications that are user facing. We, of course, want to test these tools that we make available in UNICHE in different scenarios, and we're going to do this in open-air archaeological sites with the archaeological site of Kalapod in Greece. We're going to have also a use case with the Messapian city walls in Ugento in Italy. And we're going to look at how the technologies can be used for museum exhibitions, but also for portable exhibitions. And we're going to do this with the different partners that we have in the consortium. However, the tools that UNICHE will cultural heritage organizations everywhere.
Could you repeat yourself, Alex, because we lost your connection? Repeat yourself in the last slide, your last 2 sentences.
Sorry, apologies. And thank you, Anastasia, for making this clear. I was saying that we have these 3 internal pilots. I was explaining the first one with the open air archaeological sites, but we also have something for museum exhibitions with the Museum Galileo in Italy, and for portable exhibitions with the Museum of Architecture in Wrocław. And because we are really interested to understand how cultural heritage professionals.
Alex,
yes.
Maybe I will make a suggestion. Maybe you close your camera so your connection becomes a little bit more stable.
I will try to do this. Hopefully this is a bit better.
Let's see.
Okay. If not, I can try to switch to the mobile connection if that should work a little bit better. I don't know.
Yes, let's see without the camera, and if it needs be, we can switch.
All right, perfect. I was mentioning that we want the tools of UNICHE to be really something that everyone can use. So we want to hear from other cultural heritage institutions that would like to create interactive exhibitions. So we're opening up later in the project timeline an open call for third parties where they can use the UNICHE platform to design, develop, and deploy their own interactive experiences. right, I was mentioning before that that UNICHE is part of ECOS and the Cultural Heritage Cloud. What is ECOS and the Cultural Heritage Cloud? Maybe some of you are very familiar with this, others may be less familiar.
Yes, I think, Alex, maybe we should switch to the mobile connection, if you don't mind.
I will try to do that. Give me please 1 second. And I will check this. So probably I will need to disconnect.
Yes, we'll be waiting for you. Don't worry. We can be waiting for you, but also I can move on. And okay, I see he's online for the presentation. Let's give him a second. Otherwise, I can continue with the presentation of the echoes. Can you hear us, Alex?
Yes, I can hear you. I
hello,
hope you can hear
hello.
me.
And
I hope
yes,
you can hear me better. And I hope the technical issues are maybe resolved.
Eradicated. Yes.
Eradicated. It's a bit interesting because we are talking about cultural heritage cloud, something very complex, something very ambitious. And we notice that there is this, let's say, underlying connectivity infrastructure that is sometimes creating some issues. So we see there are many challenges to solve everywhere. But back to the Cultural Heritage Cloud. This is a European Union initiative, therefore the creation of a digital infrastructure that will connect cultural heritage institutions and professionals across the EU. The goal here is to have a collaborative set of tools for the sector and to remove the barriers for especially smaller and remote institutions to access digital tools and to be part of this larger community. So the goal here is to help professionals of all sizes and institutions of all sizes and types of work with the digital objects in a more visible, interconnected, and harmonized and informed way, and thus allowing them to successfully cope with the challenges of this digital transformation that is posed by the sector. The European Collaborative Cloud is based really on this concept of the digital commons, and you see here a kind of a graphic, an infographic, trying to summarize this concept. Just to mention that this is really a key aspect of the cloud, and there are then different, let's say, working groups addressing these different dimensions of creating the digital commons. In numbers, ECCH has now many partners at European level. So you see 53 partners in total, all of them contributing to one cloud. There are now over 20 projects that have been funded with over 110 million euros. So this is a huge commitment and a huge initiatives, all to serve this one cloud, the European Collaborative Cloud. There are different levels of integration, of course, where all these different partners are coming together. And ECOS is the central coordinator of the Cultural Heritage Cloud. It leads a growing ecosystem of the sister projects that were mentioned before, which are funded under the Horizon Europe program. Um, Many of them, which have been funded so far, are actually there to develop specialized tools. And there will be a new set of projects that will be announced very soon, which will demonstrate how these tools can be used in different scenarios. Now, let's go back to our topic of today, and just to quickly review the objectives and the guidelines that we have for today. So this is part of a webinar series. We have 5 different webinars, and this is the 4th one in the series. We will share also the ones that were recorded previously in case you missed something and could not attend. And one of the main objectives of these webinars are to get an insight, really a sneak peek into the UNICHE partner technologies, and then to also at the same time discover and gain some confidence about the tools that are available. And of course, we want to learn from you. So we are really looking forward to a discussion with you to help us co-design the UNICHE suite. Now, the objectives, as I mentioned, for today in particular, you would learn something, hopefully a bit about the use of AI in galleries, libraries, archives, and museums. You will see some examples of how AI can be used by curators in particular, but also professionals at large from this domain. And as I mentioned, we do want your input. So we hope that through your discussions and your feedback, you can help us define some of the key requirements for the future use of AI in UNICHE. So let's start with this part, get a bit, let's say, a bit moving. So we'll be using Mentimeter for gathering your feedback. I think in the chat, you will also get a link to how you can use Mentimeter, but you can, of course, also scan this QR code. So either use your laptop with the direct link, or you can go to menti.com with this code that you see here on the screen, 56913404, or scan the underlying code here. I'm going to switch now to the Mentimeter. And we have a first question. How are we feeling today? So we have 10 people so far that are in the Mentimeter. If you need, again, the link, I need to share the link. 1 second.
I have shared the link. Alex, don't worry.
Okay,
the link
perfect.
is here. Don't worry.
It was just a bit slow in the chat. Super. So happy to see that people are fine, interested, excited, and not at all taken aback by the technical difficulties that I was experiencing. So that is really great. I still have my camera turned off to improve this performance of the network, but I'm really excited to see this. So thank you very much for joining. I see we have quite a good number from the people that are online following, also entering the Mentimeter. So I would go now maybe to the next question. This was just a warm-up. The next one is for us a bit more relevant because we'd really like to know a bit more about your professional background. So please do share with us what you do professionally in terms of your preparation. It will also help us understand a bit better who our audience is today. Yes, I see some of them more technical, some of them less technical. So hopefully we can have, let's say, a good discussion and a good mix. Just waiting a bit more for a couple more answers. I see software engineers, a big one. That's interesting because for the last webinars, I think archaeologists were the dominant professional background. So I like that there seems to be a different audience. Okay, that's interesting. But also we have digital heritage researchers, librarians, managers, cultural heritage managers, and museologists. So this is really great. All right, last call if you want to share something, and I think with this we're able now to go back to our presentation. 1 second. All right, I need to share this again. So now we'll go into a section which is meant to, let's say, be a bit about setting the scene of the demos that you will see a bit later, trying to review a bit what AI is and how to make the most out of it. Of course, we could spend really days, I think, talking about this topic. So we're just going to touch on some of the key points, what we think are the key points here. But of course, there is much more room for discussions. And of course, this is a very hot topic of research ongoing. So first of all, actually, AI is not something new for archives or for museums, for libraries. Since actually, ever since digitization has started, of course, the problem has been that you would get these huge amounts of new digital data, new digital records, and you would need some sort of help, especially with the task of information processing, extraction, and analysis. So this has been the, let's say, the key aspect for which AI has been used in the past, with very concrete let's say, results for improving metadata of objects, providing more efficient search mechanisms. And what the main consensus among the practitioners have been, at least according to practitioners, is that AI can really help enrich and analyze collections of data, but of course it needs supervision. And there is this art of being able to weave this technology into the collections and within the engagement strategies of each individual organization. So AI, if you deploy it in the organization, and all those organizations that have done so have mentioned that, yes, you do need to do this in a thoughtful way and adapt it for your particular case. Now, there are many examples of use of AI for archives and for museums, and there are many great resources where to dive deeper. I put here just 2 examples. One is a really nice list called the Awesome AI for LAM list, which is curated by the AI for LAM International Community. This is focusing on practical examples on the use of AI. I have to say, the examples are maybe a bit more on the traditional side use of AI, and I'm going to speak soon also a bit the newer things. Similarly, a couple of years ago, there was a task force of the European Network Association that reviewed AI in relation to GLAMs, and they published a very interesting report as well. Now, though, in the last couple of years, I'm sure you're all aware that this is the big hype that you cannot escape, and everyone is talking about it in almost every conference that you would attend. AI is really something that changed, and the meaning of AI has kind of also changed. Now, AI is understood more as what is actually machine learning and large language models. So, large language models have, in a way, become at least for most people, a synonym for AI, but they're a bit different still. And this new era is defined by this kind of multimodal foundation models and agentic workflows, generative AI. I'm sure you have at least heard about this. But something to consider is that, of course, this machine learning and large language models, they are built from all this online content that was gathered. And they're in a way only as good as this training data that has been used. So it contained a lot of good data, but it contained also some bad data and not the best online content. So that's something to consider when using AI and especially LLMs. Also, to understand it, I think it's important that in itself, these models, they leverage statistics, looking at language from this particular point of view, auto visual from this point of view. And in itself, it really tries to predict and classify, generate new images. So a lot of AI uses nowadays are, of course, related to generation of texts, of video, audio, images, and even 3D. And I wanted to highlight here something also that has been very practical, actually, because this opens up really new doors and possibilities for how cultural heritage organizations can carry out many of the other tasks that they do. So, for instance, here you see a recent digitization of a glass object, which has been previously very difficult to achieve with traditional methods of photogrammetry, because you would always have issues with this transparency, reflections. But with new techniques powered by AI, this is really now possible. So it really opens up possibilities in many different areas. And of course, also for curation. So this is something that we're going to look a bit closer later today. Within UNICHE, AI is seen as an assistant. You see it's very central in this diagram that we have here for the tools that the UNICHE system is encompassing. So for UNICHE, AI is really something that can help draft, translate, and summarize. Is a tool for helping to find content, to also personalize the content that is being provided to the users of UNICHE, can make suggestions, but it should always keep the human in the loop. And it should work inside the authoring tools that UNICHE makes available, so that really no coding is necessary to access this. And finally, it is designed to reuse the trusted content that can be accessed either through the Cultural Heritage Cloud or institutional assets. Why we think AI is really important within the UNICHE system? Well, of course, it really can help with the workload of users and reducing that a lot and improving the speed with which they can accomplish their tasks. It can really open up possibilities for multilingual access to collections and to multilingual storytelling, as well as more inclusive access. We hope that by using AI, we can really better reuse the data, which can be accessed through the Cultural Heritage Cloud and overall all these collections at scale. Of course, as I mentioned a bit before, this can be a great tool for personalization. And of course, it's important to say that we want to use it because now we see that this is quite mature of a technology. It's something that has, let's say, completely left the purely research state. So there is usable large language model tooling for non-technical users that we can make available. What are the possible ways in which we see that AI will be used in UNICHE? So there are different, let's say, aspects that it should help with. It could assist the UNICHE users with content edits, such as drafting, rewriting text, translating, but very importantly, it should help with the search. Expand also simple search queries in an iterative fashion, moving, let's say, from what is now more a keyword search to a conversational search, which would really simplify how the users are able to access the resources available in the Cultural Heritage Cloud. This relates, of course, to discovery. So we want to also be able to recommend some related records, objects, identify themes from collections. And we want to use AI in order to contextualize, have high connections between objects, and also when we are receiving feedback from visitors, we can use AI to summarize this feedback in order to understand better what are the main points. And there are also maybe some more experimental uses in order to use AI for generating activities, like guided dialogue prompts or micro quizzes. It could also be a tool for inspiration to provide, for instance, ideas for stories based on specific topics, or on content that a curator would like to highlight in a digital collection. I'm going to talk now a bit about the risks and how to mitigate them, because of course AI has a huge promise, but it carries also huge risks with it. And I think many of us have heard all the recent discussions on this aspect. So you might be more aware of some aspects rather than others. I'm going to highlight here some of the main aspects that we are considering. So most importantly, I would say that the risks are about the ethical stewardship and technical sovereignty. So we have to carefully examine and address provenance and traceability. Inaccuracy is a big risk when using the new AI tools that leverage large language models. So we want to always in UNICHE be able to cite sources, use specific data only. Also, it's important to not overclaim authenticity. So you have to clearly disclose to the visitors that something has been made by AI. And you have to be really careful when it comes to IP and rights, so that you are only reusing licensed and trusted assets, and that you keep logs for what you're doing. Privacy is another important aspect, because there is mistrust in sharing data with cloud AI. This data will be used for training the future models. So in some situations, because of constraints that organizations have, they would need to use AI locally. They would need to use their own infrastructure, so that they don't send to large technology providers data that they consider sensitive, or for which there is a specific copyright. Then privacy is also related to the general data protection for visitor, especially when you're conducting evaluations. And there it's important to anonymize analytics and do and follow this principle of the minimal data collection. Interoperability is another important risk to consider, because especially the very successful commercial models have been a bit of a black box proprietary systems, and we should be moving towards open source frameworks. Of course, there are some trade-offs to be expected in terms of accuracy and performance, but it is really key and necessary for this sovereignty to use actually this open source models and frameworks. Finally, there is an important risk that we have to consider, which is coming from the data that was used to train this large language models, which relates to bias, and they sometimes referred to as also the colonial gap. So it is really important for this reason to have all curators always check and approve materials that have been created with the help of AI, and to have a sensitivity review in order to make sure that you are not going to propagate some harmful biases, or you're not going to propagate any disinformation with what you have created. Finally, let's look at some good practice. We think that the direction is certainly towards, I would say, a balanced human AI collaboration. So this is certainly not the case that even as we see these advances in AI now at a very rapid pace, probably they will not be able to replace the human experts. So we do need to see this as a collaboration. So you can think of using AI to help you ideate, to help you consider some blind spots, something that you have not previously considered. For instance, when you're trying to set up a new exhibition, trying to find some links between elements in your collection. Another good practice is more for the software engineers among us, because I saw that there's quite a number, is of course to really have a careful design of the underlying AI system, taking into account of all these risks that I mentioned before. Yes.
Alex,
Yes.
Sorry for interrupting you. Can you start your the slide again, because I think the quality went bad, if I'm not correct, or maybe it was only mine. Maria, are you around? Or press
yes,
now?
yes. I can hear very well. I don't know.
For me, it also sounds fine.
Okay. So
Okay.
it was.
Yeah, it's good.
Sorry.
Okay.
Yes, sorry
you.
for
Also
for
interrupting. Continue on. Sorry. Sorry. Continue.
Thank you. Well, it's really, let's say, showcasing that sometimes the technology is really great because we're able to have this this webinar across countries, but it's really also the human in the loop kind of trying to understand, hey, are we really understanding ourselves? That was a nice example. But going back here to the good practices for using AI in this museum context, it's very important to edit what is being provided by generative AI, to fact check and to label it appropriately. I was mentioning this a bit earlier too. So the outputs that AI produces, until reviewed for accuracy and for rights, they really should be treated as some placeholders. And of course, you should always label something which is AI generated appropriately. Also, you should really carefully consider the ethical aspects when using AI. And here, of course, you should consult the new AI Act also, in order to make sure that there's also, of course, legal compliance to these aspects as well. And here at the end, I have also a couple of, let's say, good practices for all of you doing prompting, because prompting is becoming a bit of an artwork, as previously, let's say, CEO optimization was the dark magic that everyone that was in the web was trying to master. Now it is prompting, so how to write better prompts, how to use these interfaces more efficiently. So just a couple of good practices here. So it's always better to explain your needs explicitly and with sufficient details to provide context of what you need to do. If you are only going to have very generic prompts and questions for an AI system, then you're going to get subpar answers, which are maybe too generic, which are maybe not really suited for the level of detail that you are looking for. So to help with this also, you can also provide materials that will support this. So include facts if you have a glossary, because this really improves the way that you will be able to get more relevant answers. And speaking of answers, you should try to specify the role, the tasks and constraints, the output and the expected structure that you expect that the AI system will provide you with. So you can even say the format in which you want something provided to you, the length, the tone of voice, all of these things can really improve your interactions with AI systems and make it more efficient. All right, now it's again time for a bit of Mentimeter, because we do want to hear your opinion, and I'm going to go back here to the Menti. So, and open the next question. 1 second, here we go. So, you've heard the small overview, but actually I'm curious what AI is for you. So what is it that you think about when you hear AI? Is it ChatGPT or Siri or something you can talk to and ask questions? Is it something the recommendation systems like those of Amazon's, YouTube, and so forth? Is it just something to automate tasks, maybe? Or maybe use AI and you think of it to detect patterns in large data sets. I know hotels and airlines have been very good at using AI for dynamic pricing, or something that you use to make predictions. For instance, you can use AI to understand from past data what the weather is going to be, or other types of predictions, or maybe it's something else. All right, so I see that most people think of AI as something to talk to and ask questions, but it's nice to know that also many understand that this is something to detect patterns. Thank you for this. So we're going to move now to the next question. How often do you use AI in your work? Never used it, or almost never. Rarely use it, so once or twice a week. Sometimes, often, or very often. Okay, quite a mix of results. So it's interesting to see that everyone is a bit different, and there are even those that rarely use it. So that is really also super interesting for us. Thank you for this. If you use it, what do you use AI for? I will give you 1 or 2 minutes to write your answer. Feel free just to use a couple of keywords or short form. I know it's difficult, especially if you're using your mobile phone. But it would be really interesting to understand what are the main usages. Translations, yes, that is really interesting, and something that I certainly use AI for as well. Idea generation, yes. Screen for big text, yes. Filtering out data. Coding, yes. Of course, there's some good coding tools there. Text editing, summarization. I see some more text editing, translation again, yes. And also brainstorming. All right. Really, really nice inputs. Super. Image generation, that was, not many have mentioned that. And data analysis also. Finding relationships between different documents, finding mistakes, text review. All right. Last seconds if you're still typing and you want to submit your answer, and then we will go to the next question. All right. What are the main limitations you have experienced when using AI? Again, feel free to take a bit of time to think about this. Okay. To make the good prompt Misses conversation context. Hallucinations. Yes, hallucinations is, I think, a big aspect, of course. Prompting again. Not reading all the documents I send. Yes. False answers, hallucinations, and lack of fact checking. Yeah, having to fact check. Super. So it seems that hallucinations are really one of the biggest limitations. Outdated answers, even. Yes, false answers. Limited source and lack of critical thinking. Yes. Maybe last 10 seconds to finalize your answers, and then we can move to the next slide. Okay, the last answer came in. Perfect. Okay. Would you like AI to how would you like AI to help you better? So if you would have a kind of a way to wish for something in your current use of AI, what would be the main aspects that you would like AI to help you with? What kind of tasks are those that you would really think would be great to have the help of AI? Be more flexible in prompting, yes. Fact check data. Numerical tasks, yes. Challenge itself, that is really something going in the future directions of AI, but certainly something to consider. And maybe what kind of tasks are you hoping that AI will help you with? Multimedia creation, okay. Improve my drafts, access more sources and source criticism, find online documents, ideation, brainstorming, a smart search, visualization, and keep all the context of the chats. Yes. Search in large repositories. Good. That's something that we're going to touch upon. Smart search as well. That's great. All right, last couple of seconds to just finalize your thoughts before sending send. Perfect. All right. Content adaptation based on profiles. All right. Super. So let's move now to our final question right now, and kind of something that will link actually to the demos that are coming up afterwards. Do you think that searching for content or records is difficult? Do you agree with this statement? Is this something actually that is very easy? So you disagree with the statement, or do you agree that is a difficult task? Yes. We're trying to gauge if the demos that we're going to present are relevant for you or not at all. But it's good to see that you somewhat agree with this statement. That's great. All right, good. With this, I go back to the presentation here. And we're going to start with our first demo about the Q recommender system. So just a bit of, let's say, background here. One of the motivations that we had and with Q, but actually for the other demos that we that you will see today later on, is that there is this underlying, let's say, assumption sometimes that there is increased digitization and this will lead to increased access. But sometimes this is not really the case. So having more digital assets doesn't really mean that access is improved. And for this, then it's important to understand how we can make cultural heritage professionals and researchers able to explore actually the existing digital collections in a more holistic way, to curate better and to showcase the new insights that were gained from those collections. Also, are there maybe some non-obvious connections that are there in the records, or even in between these collections, and how can we try to surface those? So one thing that we have built that was trying to address this question is a recommender system that was meant to first of all try to be explainable for the end user, to explain why the end user is seeing certain recommendations. It is a recommender system done for yes, there was someone on microphone. No. Okay. It is a recommender system that has been built on top of data from Europeana, and in particular stories and collections from Europeana, with the idea to experiment how for end users that are visualizing the editorials of Europeana, how they can move from one editorial to the other, how they can move from one story to the next, trying to at the same time provide them not just random, let's say, stories to explore next, but something related to what they have chosen to read and experience in the first place. So the recommendations here are created based on the data and the metadata which is available for the different records that are included in the in these editorials. And the editorials in Europeana are sometimes just a collection of items, either, let's say, images or videos even, or textual resources, but they can also be editorials in the form of blog posts, which are really a mix of more contextual information, explanations, and items that are stored on Europeana. And basically, we have this editorial resources. They do contain some nice metadata, and we can exploit this in order to, without keeping track of, let's say, what users, let's say, previous preferences are, just based on the content, be able to provide recommendations which are meaningful. And I'm going to switch now to the short demo. In the meantime, I will say that this is something that we have experimented with within the AI for Media project. So for this reason, this is a proof of concept. It's only taking, you see, a very limited number of editorials that were recreated from the Europeana portal. I think it's about 20 in total, so only maybe a couple hundreds of items that were imported. So it's really not that large. Usually recommender systems work a lot better if you are addressing larger amounts of data, but we're able to demonstrate that even with this small amount, we're still able to have some very good results. For instance, a user would see these editorials, let's say is interested in ecotourism, and have a look at this particular story. which is a story that was posted on the Europeana portal. And now they can read through all of this elements, and at the end there is a list of automatically computed recommendations based on specific aspects. So in this case, you see that locations play an important role, and this is something which is highlighted. So you see that this are locations based recommendations, but some recommendations are also simply made because similar items that were contained in this blog post are contained in another collection. So for instance, in this way, you can continue your exploration of this theme, and then for instance, going to some capitals of culture, which is another blog post here. And from that, for instance, let's say you're going to Venice, which is related to this based on similar names and locations. So we're also looking at named entities, for instance, which are present in the editorials. And of course, here this is a collection, so it is visualized a bit differently. But you are able to, in this way, explore all sorts of editorials. For instance, let's say, let's have a look back at this one, and then you can, let's say, have something which is for you understandable. You're not wondering why you got this recommendation, but you are able to understand and explore in a meaningful way. There are also different types of places where these recommendations would come in, depending on how something is visualized. And then you are brought basically to other collections. My internet connection seems to be a bit slow, with having issues with just simple images being loaded, so apologies for that. And because this was one of the earlier demos, I would also like to go now to the newer ones, because I think these are a bit more excited. Before we do this, so the next demo will be done by my colleague, Opreslav Rachev, and he's going to show you, first of all, Frage, and answering questions with the help of AI. Just to set the scene, what this is, the main idea here is that you can ask your documents questions. So you can imagine here that you can upload documents that you have in your archive and ask those documents questions, chat directly with those, and do this locally. So there is no need to go to a big provider, to the cloud, in order to do this. So this is directly addressing this aspect that were a bit mentioned in terms of yes, but my data is sensitive. I cannot really use, let's say, custom ChatGPTs to access it. This is something that allows you actually to do that. It helps users to ask questions instead of asking keywords. So it's really helping basically to move from this paradigm that was previously introduced with the advent of Google, where everybody was using keywords, to something that everyone now expects, which is more this question and answer paradigm. Answers are based on what is available in your sources. So we try to give citations, and with this try to avoid the hallucinations, which many of you have marked as being one of the big issues that you have faced. And the idea is to make a collection and an archive interactive without exposing it to some commercial AI systems. Behind this this demo of Frage, you saw there's this small acronym, the RAG, which means Retrieval Augmented Generation. Just to give you a very quick brief let's say, overview of what this means. So this is an AI framework that allows one to use large language models and provide more accurate results. So before responding, a system would look up basically several relevant collections, records, text, documents that are available to it. And like you would have an assistant, a research assistant, it would do this very quickly. And the answers provided and then grounded in this real trusted sources rather than being invented or guessed or used from the underlying training data that the model had. And also the good practice saying that I was too lazy to create this graphic on my own, but I was able to do a nice prompt describing precisely what I want to see. And I had this nice graphic here generated. After this demo, you will see another demo about the Cultural Heritage Explorer. This extends this idea that you will see in the Frage demo. Here, you are no longer asking questions on your own data and your own documents, but you are asking questions on open repositories, which are a trove of really cultural heritage data. It really addresses this this drawback that experts that users are usually not experts at formulating queries in today's collection search systems, and they would rather like to use natural language queries. This especially for those that are, let's say, GPT natives. So we wanted to, in a way, build a prototype here that is able to come from a fuzzy, not very well-defined query that a user would have to a very concrete query that the underlying software system is able to answer very well. And in this way, trying a bit to discover the unknown intent of the user. The main goal here is, of course, to also inspire and assist the curational process with more experimental generative AI. You will see this at the end of this demo. But I think an important aspect to say is that the human expertise, it really remains central. So here the AI is really supporting the interpretation and access, but it doesn't replace the curators or the educators. And with this, I would like to give the floor to Preslav, who is going to actually showcase, first of all, Frage. So Preslav, I will stop sharing here and you have the controls.
Yeah, thanks a lot, Alex. Just give me a second. Right, I believe everybody should now see my screen. So, yeah, welcome everybody, and I'd be happy to demo the couple of things that Alex talked already. Just a quick, you all see my screen, correct?
Yes, we do.
I have to say that I'm on a single screen, and if anybody wants to say anything or let's say raise a question or anything, I would rather say either shout it out loud because I'm not going to be able to see, or just keep it for the end of the demo session. That is one, and the other observation is because these two demos are not yet available for public use, and we wanted to involve as many of you as possible. We thought it would be interesting if you come up with interesting questions you would like to ask any of the two systems. If you come up with such questions, feel free to post them in the chat, and at any point in time we'll come back and look in the chat and try to ask the systems the respected questions, see what comes out. I must say, as with every demo, especially with the ones involving LLMs and AI systems, it's kind of like sometimes it's open to the interpretation of the viewer. So but for the most part, it's actually pretty good. So just looking here, everything is set up correctly. So the first demo I'm going to show you is the so-called Frage system, which is a bit of a there's a kind of a backstory. There are some German-speaking people in the audience. They would really get the meaning of the word Frage, which is in German means question, but it also has the RAG, the RAG in abbreviation in the middle. So it really perfectly matched our intent with what we wanted to do here. So one of the things we internally at Into have always kind of strived for was moving beyond, let's say, search, as Alex already mentioned a couple of times, as being able to put something in a search box and get straight answers, or try to refine your query such that you always find something, to being able to actually in a way more naturally talk to your documents or talk to any document set that's available out there. So in a way we've sort of achieved that with the Frage application. I'm just gonna straight dive into the demo itself. So essentially what Frage is it's an application that allows you to create collections of documents. What I mean by collection, that's important to clarify at first, is and more importantly, what is a document? So a document could essentially be anything. It could be a PDF, it could be an EPUB, ebooks. We actually teased up earlier on with the idea of bringing a bunch of EPUBs in one place and actually being able to talk to the books themselves, like being able to get insights from what the authors thought, and maybe one author would clash with the opinion of another, and so on and so forth. But that's still in the experimentation phase. So for now, we've essentially decided to stick to the domain of cultural heritage, and especially when it comes to a place like the Museo Galileo. We thought it would be an interesting idea to go to the website and see what kind of content we could find there to experiment with. And we found that the items themselves are actually a pretty good source of something to start with. So we basically set up one collection, as you can see here, with 361 documents for now, but there are actually many more. We were able to find nearly 1,000 documents, and if you think about a document, it's essentially this piece here, right? Like it has a description, it has like a title and so on, as well as some other metadata. So it's very easy to just briefly gonna show how the creation of collections works. Essentially very easy to do that. You just create one and you immediately can set it up with documents. So like I said, we already have some stuff from the Museo Galileo. Not gonna bother you too much with that, just to kind of demonstrate that what happens when I upload these few documents here is a couple of things happen in the background. Was actually pretty fast, but this each of these documents is essentially analyzed and prepared for being able to be chatted with, the so-called vectorization and embedding. I'm not going to go too much into technical detail here, because even though there are quite a few software engineers in the audience, we'll try to keep the talk more on the, let's say, non-technical aspects. So let's stick to the prepared collection, which has, like I said, it has like a couple of hundred of documents already. So we want to see what we could do with it. So essentially, you get this chat box here, which you're freely available to use. But we also thought that many people might be kind of hesitant to ask questions, especially if you think of people like students coming to the museum, and if you could think of this as being like a like a kiosk that they talk to. So they would be wondering, okay, what do I actually ask the this collection of items is there. Like, I don't even know what to ask for. So we thought of, sorry, this was like the demo gods. The demo gods, you have to you have to ensure that the things work. So we thought of this approach, and we basically said, you know what, we will prepare, we will ask the large language model to prepare a set of starting questions for you that you could, use as your starting source. So essentially, everything that you see was like we actually sent these documents to the LLM and told the LLM, hey, come up with interesting questions that people can ask for. All right, so let's say, what items can be found in Matthias de Medici's collection as shown in room 4? You could easily click on that, and it becomes like your starting question. As you can see, the model is already thinking. It prepares a couple of starting questions based upon your query. Like we used to call it like a query augmentation, and then it sends those to the large language model, which in return answers back. And like you could see already, this is a pretty good example, because you already get the answer from the assistant. So here's what we can see: stands, tripod, real box, and so on and so forth, with some context. But you actually see the real ones. So these are actual snippets from the documents that we send to the LLM, which is really where the provenance aspect is starting to make sense. Like a lot of you answered on the Mentimeter that they're feeling that the AI might be hallucinating a lot, and not always kind of being able to connect what is being said to an actual fact. And this is something we've tried to improve. So essentially, what happens behind the scenes is you ask a question, we find the relevant documents in the collection. So this is how the RAG would work. Then we send your question and the relevant documents to the LLM, telling the LLM, the large language model, hey, only and only answer based on what you see here as a context. But we don't even trust that. At the end, we take the answer from the large language model, and then each of these tiny snippets, or as we call them, blocks, is then put and compared against the collection of the documents once more. Because large language models, they could easily just slip and say, they could misuse a reference. They could just say, hey, this is the block and this is some reference. So they could easily, depending on how large or small they are, they could easily fake a reference. And we thought, no, we want to make sure that these references are actually factually correct. So each of these blocks is then once again compared with the whole database of documents that we have. So moving on, let's say, what else could we ask? I had here a prepared question, which is, I'm interested in the life and work of Galileo. Set up a thematic work for me. Let's suppose that this is something that a curious student or a curious visitor to the museum might be interested in. Okay, interesting layout. Like, this is one of the things we're still working on. Massaging the kind of information that's coming from the large language model and putting it into the right format. But essentially, you already kind of see what it returns, right? So plus with the references and everything. So it says there is the astrolab, and there is the what can you visit? You can visit in room 3. You can go to terrestrial and celestial bodies, so on and so forth, with like I said, the respective references. Okay, let's start from clean slate. So let's ask it another question. What is who are the Medici, and what is the relation? see if we'll answer that one. So the thing is, if you keep asking it more and more generic questions, it might return an answer because it's a large language model. That's that's what they do. But it's a good example that since if you see this collection of documents, they might have a reference to one or another person from the Medici family, but they're strictly about the items themselves. They're not so much about the history and the whole background. So as you could see, it returns an answer. It tells you, okay, the Medici were a powerful Florentine family and so on and so forth. But you didn't necessarily get a reference here. So which means it wasn't able to factually prove it based on the documents in our collection. It doesn't mean that it's not true. It doesn't mean it doesn't exist. It just means that the documents in the collection are limited in the information that they deliver. Which, of course, what's the solution there is always add more archives, add more documents. We could easily just add more stuff to this collection, which is what I'm gonna do. So what I'm gonna do in a second. Just copy this. What else? Yes, one thing you could do here, which is what I've already done, is every collection has the ability to get some system instructions. Some of you might be familiar with those from tools like ChatGPT, where you could say, I want the voice of this application to be, to return answers in a particular manner, to behave in a particular manner. This is the place where Alex already mentioned, where you could put the human in the loop and actually help improve the sort of not only the correctness, but essentially the way that the assistant works is by properly prompting or setting up the scene. So like I did here, you're an AI assistant curator at the Museo Galileo. This is a collection of items from the museum's collection. You could easily just expand this with reply in a polite manner and so on and so forth. Try to not hallucinate or try to not invent things that are not in the context that you're not seeing. All of those things are possible. And they're actually readily welcome to be added here. So I'm trying to...
we have prompted the audience. I just wanted to reiterate it in voice. If they wanted to share with us any questions, maybe anybody could give some questions to Preslav so we can try them out. I know we have some of our partners from Museo Galileo. Maybe they even know to prompt some of their material.
There was one which I readily picked up. So it says, what are the best exhibits to show Galileo? To show, probably it was kind of related to my question, so it would probably other things, but it says Astrolab. So the Astrolab is apparently very, very, I think it's this one, right? Astrolab. Yeah. It says the Astrolab. It's a related object, terrestrial globe. Some related objects to the celestial globes. So a lot of these globes, and like you see, they have a pretty good match to what was asked for. So 72 by our account, we estimated that anything with a match above 70% correctness is actually pretty good. Just quickly. So on the technical questions, I will answer rather after the demos, if you don't mind.
What is the best piece of the collection, maybe, that Sofia Pescarin has?
Let's see what it says. Sometimes it would say, hey, the best piece to see in the Museo Galileo's collection would likely be the armillary sphere, inventory number. Like it even gives you the inventory number. Interestingly enough, it's lower on the list, but that's because they're all pretty much with the same match. But it says here, this remarkable instrument made by Jane. It's a great example of astronomical technology from the Renaissance era. So it is pretty powerful, and at the same time, it's still kind of in the early days of this technology. So we're still kind of trying to improve it. One of the ways to improve it will be to actually give it a fair trial with a bunch of different queries, seeing actually if it factually makes sense, and then additionally improve the prompting based on what we see. So sometimes it might make up some answers. Like I wanted to actually give a very kind of a crazy question. I am a sci-fi fan. Can I see anything? And this will be the last one because I think we have a few minutes left, and I'll move to the other demo. Can you see anything that will interest you? Let's see what it answers with. Sometimes it just says, it's not in my. Okay. Once again, based on the provided context. So it's good that it says here, based on the provided context. So you would have the opportunity to see if it actually, like here, for example, it says terrestrial telescope. Although not directly linked to science fiction, terrestrial telescopes. Well, it's mostly in that regard, right? Like, of course, it's not gonna be like as it says here, it's not gonna give you science fiction items per se, but it would always kind of try to rotate the topic to astronomy, which is quite close. So I think it's a good thing as a start. So I think unless there are any specific questions, no, I would rather move to the other demo because we have a few minutes left, and we would like to reserve some room for additional questions in the end. So I would rather stop that and start the other one, and that is, we call it the Cultural Heritage Explorer, for lack of a better name. We start with the same premise, which is while in the Frage, where you're dealing with your own set of documents, so to speak. So with your own collection, and you're kind of responsible for adding to it, and kind of you might add or delete documents depending on what you want to achieve in the end. Dealing with a large archive, like for example, we take Europeana here. It has a lot of advantages and disadvantages. The obvious advantage being is that you have essentially a ton of content you might be able to find and search through and discover serendipitously, if you will, just like ending up on it. But the disadvantage is that unless you're really familiar with search per se, how searches work, like Alex already mentioned a couple of times, unless you're really like trying to think through the keywords in your mind, it's actually a fairly difficult task. So at the end, most people would either do something like, okay, I'm interested in Galileo, and I would just say Galileo Galilei, and that will be it. Of course, this will return a bunch of stuff, but then you'll have to like literally sit down and sift through. And of course, if you're going this generic way, of course, it will always be related to one topic, but you might be missing on 100 other topics that might be potentially interesting. So this is This is the one. This is the one problem, and the second problem is take here my favorite example. If, or better, let's start from the Europeana. If I put the same thing I asked Frage, if I put it here, what do you think would come back? So I'm interested in the life and work of Galileo. Set up a thematic walk for me. Well, not surprising to some, there will be 0 results, because this is not how search engines are meant to work, right? Like they don't particularly understand the intent you're asking for, who's Galileo, and maybe it matches one keyword, but it doesn't match the others, and it mutually excludes sort of a bunch of results, and at the end the search engine is taking the safest route and saying, okay, I'd rather not return anything than return something that doesn't match. With that in mind, we came up with the idea of this Cultural Heritage Explorer, where instead of searching directly, it would take your query, think through it, come up with a bunch of topics, and then for each of these topics, it will start preparing like what we call now a search strategy, essentially. And I must say, these topics, they are in a universe of thought. They're not necessarily about the same topic, but they're in the kind of realm, like it's very easy to explain it when you see it. So I said, I'm interested in the life and work of Galileo. Like you said, it already started working. It found these topics, and then it starts searching based on this kind of expanded realm of thought. But what are the topics? So let's say, okay, obviously one is Renaissance astronomy, heliocentrism, what else? The Age of Discovery, Cosmic Revolution, Galileo's influence. So of course the Medici. So all of these things, if you just ask very simple queries, you would probably miss on them. It might like sometimes the Explorer might give you a completely new topic which is super related, but you've never thought about it. And in this way, it provides you with a lot more room to start your let's say either Europeana or any other digital archive kind of exploration. So there are some sample queries, and like you see, there is actually an interpretation of what the query was meant to search for. So let's say exploring the Medici court patronage. Galileo worked and lived in this area, so they're likely to have relevant materials. Let's see what is okay. Let's see what the Europeana query was. So Florence or Tuscany. So this is one thing which is interesting, because I would never have, just giving Galileo, I would never have thought of, okay, put Florence or Tuscany. The Renaissance, for example, Renaissance of Florence. So a lot of it sort of expands the realm of what could be possible, and then you could, of course, you could grab each of these separate queries on their own, and you could, like if you have a European account, you could of course kind of go play with it, maybe store some of them in a collection that you're working on, or if you want to explore, and this is essentially the last, I believe, part on our demo, is something that we played with. This is where the generative part comes. Okay, let's say I don't know. Let's take Florence and Tuscany. So maybe take a spyglass telescope. We thought of the generational aspect and where this could play a role, essentially in something like working with large archives, and we're still, I must say, we're still trying the ground there on what's possible, because we saw it in the Mentimeter answers as well. Some people want kind of being able to generate stories, but others are more like I want this to feel as a kind of a helpful editor to what I'm writing. Others are yet, I want this to give me an initial prompt or an initial idea suggestion that I can then work on. And at this point, we just said, you know, take it with a grain of salt, but, you know, we grab a bunch of these items, we get their context to the LLM and ask the LLM to come up with sort of a coherent story. I must say, again, take this with a grain of salt, because, you know, the stories are, they're fine, but, you know, they're not something that will be ready for immediate publishing, or let's say immediate consumption by readers. And yeah, sometimes it takes a little while for the story to be created, but yeah, this one doesn't seem too bad. A tale of science, art, and diplomacy across Renaissance Europe. So depending on what you got as items, you know, if you didn't get any kind of crazy combinations, actually the stories that come that come around maybe not really bad to start with. And this is kind of the next thing that we're going to expand upon, how to actually take the generational aspect further, improve on. Is story generation the thing we're going after, or is it more like, let's say, being able to provide the reader, the user with an outline, let's say, something that they can start with, or how can the generational aspect help here in a way that doesn't feel too artificial and too, let's say, made up and so on. So I think I have a minute here. Maybe I can look in the answer. Possible prompt, propose a digital story. Should I try this one? Let's see. What? No. Combining material from Museo Galileo, archaeological.
All of our use cases, actually, all of the sites that we have in our consortium.
Yeah, but like, I think in this case it would directly search for the things for the museums and museum in architecture in Wrocław. Let's say what I wanted to try as an example is something like the role, let's say, in, I don't know, something, the role of Europe in space exploration. I don't know, something that completely popped up in my mind, just to kind of see what happens. And like you see, it generates a ton of additional topics. So this is something really to be played with. I mean, this has to be played with and improved upon to see if where we can take this further. But like as you can see, it could work on any topic. For example, if I just went to Europeana with this, maybe it could find something. But for the most part, it would, let's see, space exploration. Okay, maybe. Rugby in Europe, not really relevant, right? So in our case, this actually tries a bunch more keywords and combinations of keywords, and tries to understand from the Europeana API, so to speak, what is correct, what is not correct. This is one of the areas where we struggled a bit, because, you know, the large language model being essentially non-deterministic, sometimes it might make mistakes in the sense that it might invent Europeana search API syntax which doesn't exist. So we needed to think of how to mitigate that as well. And it's a bunch of interesting challenges, basically.
So Preslav,
Right,
I will
so
give you one more minute to wrap up, because I think we need to move on to the next section.
Yes, that's about the time when I say the demo on my side is pretty much done, and I would now stop sharing and I would return to Alex.
Thank you so much, Preslav.
Thank you very much, Preslav, and apologies that I took so much time with my technical difficulties before, because I think everyone was having a lot of questions for you, and there are many questions for the Q&A. Before we go there, just very quickly, if you can go back to the Menti, there are just two questions, sorry, going back to the Menti. There are just two questions that are coming up for you now after you have seen these demos. First question is, would like to know, what did you find most interesting in these demos that you have seen? Was there something that really caught your eye and you think this is really, really interesting for what I'm working on? We know we showed you quite a few things. So this is why I would like to understand what you found the most relevant. The query expansion, the combination of assets in open repositories, right? Frage, okay. The use of collection for younger audiences. Yes. The mix of sources. Cross-reading documents and the fact that they have links to where they are derived from the info, yes, with the references. Indeed. I think that aspect of systematic citations and the citation validation is certainly key, right, for reducing these hallucinations. Ability to scope searches with a trusted context, super. All right.
Maybe Alex, you could reiterate a little bit what we saw, like just a brief overview, like 1 or 2 sentences for each demo, so people can remember after this time.
Right.
So you
right. Yeah. So maybe just to reiterate, yes, in Frage it was mainly this aspect of search rack system and the ability to explore knowledge and chat with your documents there. Whereas in the last demo, you have seen how external sources can be used, how query expansion is really done in order to catch this intent from user and help to, let's say, massage it into something that works well for the repositories where you are searching in. And finally, the generative part where you are selecting several records which are of interest to you, and you are basically asking for a kind of a draft of a story that would contain those. Maybe last couple of seconds for those that are still writing and haven't pressed send, because I think otherwise your answer that you carefully crafted is being lost. So we don't want to do that. So last call for anyone that is still typing. Otherwise, we'll go to the last question because we don't have that many.
Yes.
That much time left. So the final question also from the Menti is, in terms of search, most importantly, how would you like AI to help you find relevant content? So is there something specific that you think would be super useful? Thinking, of course, of your practice, of your daily work, of how visitors, if you're working in a museum, of how visitors are interacting with digital content, or you would like them to interact with digital content. So All right, access to repositories, the combination of the local data open repository bibliography available, combined search. So that seems to be a topic, yes. Maybe I know this is open-ended questions are sometimes difficult, but now I see a lot more answers coming in. Yes, I think this combined search, that's really something powerful and really something that the Cultural Heritage Cloud will be able to do, I think. This ability to federate different repositories and from the one entry point be able to search on all of these different repositories. And I think with a good search system that should be also providing feasible and meaningful results. Multimedia sources, all right. So last couple of seconds, if you are still typing. Sorry. And all right. Actually, I would leave this open and I would just go back to the presentation here. I had a couple of few final thoughts on where to go next, and we have here this artifact, actually this, in a way, early computer that was being used by navigators in the Galileo Museum, the Astrolabe. However, I think it's maybe better now to use the time for the Q&A. So I will skip to the end and open the Q&A actually, because we had already very interesting questions from the audience. So, oops, maybe I don't show that yet, but let's open for the Q&A. And I would take the questions, maybe I'll try to open my camera as well. Take the question in the order that they were here. So let's see, there was the first one that was part, I think. It's a very technical question. So how did you process the different types of documents? For instance, I had trouble to process large Excel files with embedded images. Are there any constraints? So Preslav, I give it to you.
That's the challenge indeed. So the main problem in most of machine learning is actually not the learning process itself. It's usually the pre-processing and cleaning the data and preparing it to be in the right format. So in our case, we ended up following what I believe most of the other tools out there are going for, is essentially extracting as much text as we can and coming up on consistent formatting. So for us, this consistent formatting in the end is Markdown. What we do is, no matter what you provide, whether it's a PDF, EPUB, text file, Markdown, or any other application. Actually, Excel is not something we've thought yet about, but it's a good thing to look for. Would be eventually to try and fit this into the Markdown format, so that it's kind of consistent. In the case of Excel, it would be, I know Markdown has tables as well, and it would be sort of like, there's always, to summarize it, there's always a pre-processing step, regardless of what you upload. We take an account of the file type and throw it to one of the possible preprocessors we have on hand.
Thank you, Preslav. And maybe just to say another addition here, because I know we talked this internally, but of course one of the ideas is to also this is to be seen as a bit of a pipeline, and you mentioned that there's this pre-processing step that happens, and there are many other steps there. And one aspect is there are now more standardized protocols actually in which AI systems can communicate with each other and access services of one another. So we could look into this direction, how things can be plugged in together in order, for instance, to have a system that is really able to analyze different types of documents well and provide the data in the format that is needed for this search. It relates a bit to the next question that was in the chat, which was a very interesting suggestion, which was if that it would be interesting if I could talk instead of write. So really talk to the documents. For instance, you're on your smartphone and in your hand, and you're in the exhibition, and then you are talking to ask these questions. And I would say this is certainly a very nice idea, and something that we should investigate. I think this could be something that can be implemented with an additional step, basically, that can be tied into this AI pipeline, where before actually the prompting is happening, there is a speech-to-text system that is taking care of the query, which I have to say the speech-to-text at the moment, they work decently well. So also in different languages, and multilinguality is actually one of the points which is also very, very relevant for this type of systems. And next question here we had, give me a second to do. There was what about images and videos? If I remember correctly, this was also within the context of Frage. And maybe just to say, indeed, RAG systems, they create these embeddings and from text, but could also create this from images and videos. There are other systems, let's say known ones, let's say Clip, that is able to create from images textual understanding and representation on that, and then from that you translate it into the system that you have there in terms of searching as you did previously. So it's a matter, again, as you would have with the speech input and documents that would, let's say, come in different formats. You would similarly have to do this pre-processing step, where you'd use another AI system in order to analyze these images and these videos. And I'm aware already of some initiatives, actually, and different research groups that are actually already working on these aspects and archives. So that's certainly something to consider also. And another question was also asking about some details about the frameworks that are being used behind. I don't know if Preslav, you want to give a bit more, let's say, technical insights, maybe just very quickly, the main keywords.
I mean, on the technical aspects, we use so currently we use an application, open source application called Olama for hosting the models on our own machine, and essentially it provides an API that we could communicate with. It's a very easy to use and well-known REST API, so technically integrating with it is not difficult. There are different aspects on how you can talk to it. You might talk to it in plain text, or you ask it to reframe the answers from the large language model in more structured approach. It is pretty decent, and it's becoming more or less of a standard in how you host large language models to be used. With respect to the models, I wanted to say we're also trying to use sort of made in EU open source models, and especially for these demos that you saw, we've been working almost explicitly with Mistral. It's a French company that produces large language models, which are of very decent quality. They're open source, they're widely available, and they're not as large as as you would expect from the sense of Anthropic or OpenAI's models, but they're pretty good, and especially for RAGs where you don't need actually all the factual data in the world, but you only need this limited context, they're actually pretty good.
Thank you, Preslav, for this insights. Just looking here, the next questions here. There was a question about the power and time needed for the learning phase. I would just have to say that we use the already trained models. So I guess this is not really something that we are having to deal with.
I mean,
Yes,
sorry to interrupt, Alex. If I could add on that, basically, it's an extension of the sort of previous answer I gave. Since these models are self-hosted, we could actually, this is not something we did for this webinar, but it's a very good suggestion that we monitor, because we can actually monitor the consumption, the power consumption and all. But what Alex said is correct as well. We're not training them. So there is no actually learning, as in you need to spend days and days of training. But we take readily available models. So like the inference part is, it's still CPU and GPU. It is resource consumption. It takes a lot of resources, but like you saw, most of the answers come within a couple of seconds. So it's not extremely power consuming.
And there was another question here that we have, lots of questions. So thank you very much for this. Really, really happy to see that the audience was so engaged. Can Frage handle documents in different languages? And can it handle handwritten documents? I can say at the moment handwritten, no, but of course there are also AI systems that do OCR with different levels of, let's say, success, although the latest, at least commercial models, they showed very good results there as well. But Preslav, different languages, I think that those are supported now, right?
Different languages, yes. Yeah, like now it brings me back that we could have seen one of the, especially in the Cultural Heritage Explorer, one of the queries there. I think it returned items in different languages, which we could have pointed at. But that's one of the additional benefits of using large language models, is that it usually is not only trained in English, but in most, let's say, European languages as well. So.
Mm-hmm.
That's an additional advantage. You could ask it in any language and it can pretty much respond in that language, or you could tell it to respond in English, or take documents in different languages and so on.
Super. Thank you very much, Preslav, and thank you very much everyone for your attention and for all this really super interesting questions. We're really running out of time, so just to answer the final question here, yes, we will be sharing the slides from this webinar, and we will be sharing also the recording with you. I would also like to maybe share another aspect, which is we are now, you are the very first one that can take our brand new survey about AI in museum experience design, an expert survey. So it's really meant for people that are working in museums. I'm sorry for the software engineers that are not working in museums. You can still give us your inputs about this webinar series and how you found this webinar, also super useful for us. Thank you, Anastasia, for sharing the links also in the chat. So please, if you found this topic interesting, give us a bit more detailed input in terms of how AI is used from your point of view in museums for experience design. It should be not a very, let's say, long survey, but still I think about 10-15 minutes will be needed to complete this. It would really be great if you are able to give us your feedback there. And with this, I would really like to thank you for your participation. Yes, we will see you very soon, because we are having a final webinar next week.